Tammy, or whoever might be watching this screencast. This is sort of an off-the-cuff screencast, and so I may not go back and repeat things or edit things as carefully as I would if we were putting it out for publication. But I thought I would introduce you to HAIKU, a learning management system, at least the parts that we use most frequently. And I thought I would go ahead and do this because sitting on the phone or at GoToMeeting with each other, it can become a little cumbersome. And this way we can really get down to the heart of some of the assignments or some of the questions that you have about navigating the system. So let's go to the things that we use just about every day. This happens to be my home page when I log in. There's my lovely picture with my dog Chance. She's so adorable. On the left-hand side over here are the classes that I'm enrolled in or that I'm a teacher in. And so what we're going to do first is go to year 1 induction. That's where we have the most PTs, and therefore that's where we tend to have the most assignments that we look at. So here it comes. It's coming up quickly today. As you know, it always comes to this first welcome page. And here's a caveat. I may say this 2 or 3 times. Tammy, I know that you know a lot, and so if I say something, it's not necessarily because I think you don't know, but because sometimes it helps me stay on track if I'm sort of going in an orderly way. So this is not meant to say that you don't know a lot more than the things I'm going to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Connect because that's where the Dropbox is. And I'm going to start checking in on some PT's assignments. Okay, if my screen looks slightly different, it's because I stopped the recording. It must have taken a minute and a half for this Dropbox to open. I have a theory, but I don't know if it's correct. You'll notice here under the Connect, it says Dropbox 880. That means there's 880 assignments for me. That doesn't mean that they haven't been reviewed. It's just that I haven't touched them or downloaded them. So for example, let's say that Colby goes in. Let's say Colby and you review something, sign off on it. It will still come up as not being reviewed by me. And I'm wondering if this is part of what makes it so slow, is that there's so many items in my Dropbox. So you're going to find a gazillion billion in your Dropbox, even if they've been handled by someone else and completed. And Shive briefly went over that yesterday, but I'll remind you of that. So at the bottom is the oldest or first assignment. And then we go up. Here is Fact Module A, a survey, Fact Module B we were talking about yesterday. I've been trying to work on Fact Self-Assessment Standards 5 and 6, so we're going to go there. It was due December 20th. You could see over here, most people turned it in at that time, so even though I'm moving through them as quickly as I can, you can tell that a lot more need to be done. Here it says handed in 171, and I have replied, I've made 151 replies. That's because some people have 2 replies, and I'll show you how that goes. So we can click on this assignment, and notice it says 71 new. Yours might say 171 because you haven't, you specifically haven't looked at them. So let's take a look at this. Here's our assignment, 1/6 Fact Self-Assessment, alphabetical order by last name. There's a funky thing that happens sometimes when this comes up, and I won't, actually I will show you. Notice there are 9 pages for these participating teachers. Every once in a while it will come up with 15 pages, and I look at that and I go, I know there's not 15 pages here. And for some reason, it includes more than one section on this list. If you see there's more the pages than say 9 or 10, come up here, click on SPs. You don't want to look at those. Go back and click on PTs. It will then say 9 pages, and you're like, okay, I know that's more in line with what I'm looking at. The reason I'm bringing this up is if it loads both PTs and SPs, you're going to be very frustrated because you're seeing a lot of things with zeros because support providers don't turn work in. So that may be confusing, but we can talk about that. So let's look at Lindsay Adams. It says she has one new. She handed in one. I haven't had any replies to it in this particular one, but it's marked with an X. So that's sort of interesting, but X means it's complete, so we can keep moving on. Next one has an X. It doesn't say anything new. It might say new for you because I did it, but you haven't done it yet. But you see that X, keep moving on. R is for resubmit. I happen to know because I've been doing almost all of these self-assessments. I don't have anything new. What it means is I looked at this person's information, what they handed in. I made 2 replies to it. I handed back their document and made comments, and I put the R in. So I'm still not going to look at it. I'm going to keep going. There's X, X, R, X, R. I is for you haven't turned anything in. So let's go to Sheriana Bowman. She's turned something in. I haven't looked at it. Let's go figure out what's going on. So I click on her name. And here she is. What this tells me is for this assignment, she's turned it in twice. Why, I don't know. She might have updated it, or she might have thought we didn't receive it because we haven't responded yet. I'm going to go to January 11th, click on that. Here's her assignment. I'm going to click on that, and if we're lucky, it's going to come up in the annotation window. Cool, it did. It's really small, so I'm going to enlarge it. Let's see, she is in Fallbrook. She teaches kindergarten. And here's that front page where I'm going to put some of my comments and whether or not it's accepted, whether or not it's considered complete and ready to go. So on the self-assessments, here's each different standard. This is 2.5. We usually just say 2.5 pedagogy. And then here's our expectations. They're the same for each of them. That the responses are directly related to the prompt given, and that there are examples provided. Those are the 2 biggest things. Now, what is not noted here, but is on the directions, so let's scroll down to the first one. Here's Pedagogy 2.5. What they've done is they've taken the standard that's over here, and they've chunked it into 3 different parts to make it more, 4 different parts, sorry, to make it more manageable. So rather than saying, respond to this big long thing, they've chunked it into, for example, assessment data. What's most critical about these self-assessments is, notice this, how I use multiple measures to monitor student progress. So at times, of course, you know this, Tammy, you're going to get someone who says, I use multiple measures to monitor student progress towards meeting the adopted academic content standards. I do a good job at this. And then they go on to the next one. And it's like, well, that's great, but how do you do that? So I find myself highlighting this how sometimes, or typing over here, how. Key things we look for, the date. If it's not there, it's okay. I just tell people you need to put the date on it next time. Notice this prompt. Describe your strengths and challenges related to assessment. Sometimes they go with the strengths, they forget to do the challenges. You'll find a variety of ways that people have responded here. Some are narrative, some are bulleted. We don't care. What we're looking for is 1 to 2 strengths and hopefully 1 to 2 challenges. Now remember, these are year 1s, so this is the first time they've done it. If they only have 1 challenge, we're not going to send it back. So let's take a look at this one. Let's read this. I'm not going to read it aloud to you. Let's take a couple seconds to read this. Okay. Benchmarks in kindergarten. Always interesting. Okay, so this person has given us some information. Now, if I were really analyzing this deeply at like a support provider, I would say, okay, I see what you're doing, but connect that to how you make sure, what do you do with it when it's done? That's a support provider conversation. So I'm going to say this is fine. You'll notice it says final self-assessment down here. For year ones, they're going to do an inquiry, which is Model C, what Shive went over in the phone call earlier this week. And then they're going to come back and revisit this, and they're going to do the same thing. What are my strengths and challenges? Multi-tiered intervention, I'm going to tell you, Tammy, here's what I really do. And you will do the same thing in a heartbeat. I know the standard. I take a look at this, how I use multi-tiered interventions. I go straight to their response, and I see if they're on target for what they're talking about. They've got strengths, they've got challenges, I move on. We could spend hours on this one document. So remember, they were writing it, they discussed it with their support provider, then they probably typed it up, and now they're submitting it to us. So as long as it's on target, it's fine. Students group by levels, challenge. Okay, so she's talking about Spanish. We're probably going to hear her talking about that again. Learning environment. This is the one where typically they say, I insist upon a great learning environment, and they don't tell us how. This one doesn't have a challenge. So I'm probably going to put this comment here. She's still gonna, yeah, sorry. I clicked on comment, and here I have some options. I can draw, highlight, text, or strike out. I seldom use the strikeout on this document because it looks so onerous. I do text, and I use blue. Colby uses green. I hate that you might need to use red, but what we try to do is make it so that if we're each making different comments, people can see. So here I might put challenges question mark. Doesn't mean I'll do a lot with it, but it means it might draw it to my attention when the person does their final one. So we continue to go technology. I'm going to stop here because you don't want to see me do this whole thing, but you get the idea. So let's say that a couple things. When we get to inclusive environments, and things like cultural responsiveness, every once in a while a comment comes up that's like, oh, eek. We don't really tell anyone what to think or what to do, but if I got a number of comments here about I treat them all equally and I don't take any excuses because of their gender or their socioeconomic background, each student is expected to bring in the same amount of supplies as the next one. Before I would give that an X, just if I were doing it alone, I would go back and ask the person, can you tell me how that supports an inclusive environment? And say, please, revisit. So let's assume that this one is hunky-dory. Oops, let me show you one thing. I have found that from some districts, this area right here, I don't want it to put a text box in, and it's going to, dang it. Oh, it's not, okay. Evidence. Their examples are supposed to be included over here. They're supposed to be talking about it, including their evidence, they're including their examples. Sometimes in some districts, I've seen people, okay, here's what I do, and then they come over here and they list evidence. There's nothing wrong with that. I just try to tell them they don't have to do it doubly. If it's in one place, it doesn't have to be in the other. Because I don't want it to be more onerous work than it needs to be, asked and answered. So let's assume that Sheriana Bowman, fabulous job. I go here to comments, and I'm going to put my initials. Oops. So let's say you've already looked at this. Your initials would be here, and I'm going to come along and I'm going to put my initials here. Suppose 3 of them are good and 1 of them needs help. I can put comments here. I go down here, I'm the first reviewer. I'm going to do this, put my date in. Okay, now There's a couple options I have. I can mark as reviewed or hand back to student. Here's what Shibe was talking about the other day. If we do not hand it back, then the second reviewer can look at it, do whatever they need to do with it, and then the second reviewer hands it back. I hope that works. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great suggestion. Um, I personally don't mind if I say something and then someone comes along and says, oh no, I see this. I think it's okay. We haven't had any issues where one person is like, whoa, really hard, and the other person is like, oh, that's just way too hard. Um, I'm going to go ahead and hand this back to the student, and then you and I can talk about how we want to do it. So I'm going to hand this back to the student. And here's what comes up. So she turned hers in January 20th. She turned in a second one January 11th. If I don't look at this, it's going to stay on mine as new. So I'm going to open this. And if I just open it, here it comes. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to mark it as reviewed so it doesn't show up as something I haven't done. You don't have to do that, but it drives me nuts. So here we are. Here's her assignment. Now see this little green? This shows that I handed this back to her. So when you come in, you can see all this as well. So you can see, oh, well, I don't know what happened here, but okay. Elisa looked at this and handed it back. Okay. Let's see. Suppose, I'm jumping around now. Suppose it wasn't complete and I handed this back and had some comments. First thing I would do is I can't get down there. Sorry, I had to adjust my screen. You'll notice down below, write message, download all files, refresh and close. Even though I've handed back the document to her and here is my teacher notes, I'm going to click write message. If I was trying to say, you know, there's a few things you need to do, please take a look at X, Y, and Z, because I was going to ask them to resubmit it by putting an R in, then that's where I would say this here. And here's why. When Colby and I started doing this, we said, what can we look at most quickly? Now for her, I'm going to put, hi, Shariana. Thanks so much for your submission. Now here's the other thing. We review, but this is a formative process. And so therefore, we're not evaluating. So therefore, we can afford to be nice. We don't, you know, we're not overly nice. We're not like, hey, how's your dogs and cats? But thank you so much for your submission. Your work is detailed and clear. And your reflections are directly, connected to these standards. I have signed off. This is pretty, and normally what I do is I have this on the side in a Word document and I just copy and paste it in, put a different name, and then add whatever unique, you know, if I want to have a unique sentence so they know I really read it, like, I'm really interested to see how you use iPads. Then I just add it in. But I have my standard piece here. Your work is detailed and clear and your reflections are directly connected to the standards. I have signed off on your verification form and handed it back to you. Again, you and I can talk about how we want to hand it back. If we don't want to hand it back until the second reviewer has looked at it, all of that's fine with me, but I'm just trying to show you messages and stuff like that. So here we go. She knows it's done. I'm going to click send. This is the part I really wanted to show you. You can do a lot here. You can upload files if there's something that's not that often on this assignment. So let's say you went in to look at Shariana. This is exactly what you would see, not just me. You'd go, oh, okay, well, she's got 2 assignments, but it looks like Elisa. I can see it's Elisa. Reviewed this and handed it back, and here's the message. The reason Colby and I went to doing these messages rather than a couple of other ways that messages can be sent to teachers is because whoever opens this up can immediately see it. You don't have to go someplace else looking for, you know, uh, a basic comment. So suppose that this message said, "Hi Shariana, gosh, this is almost done. Thank you for your work. I'd like you to revisit standard 2.5 pedagogy, and I'll ask you to add challenges to 5 of these standards." First of all, you would be able to read that right off the front, so you're like, oh, got it. You can go in and click on her work right here, and what's going to happen is it's going to come up, and because I handed it back to her, it's going to show my comments on it. So here, I'm going to move this over. Here it shows, I'm like, oh, okay, well, Elisa did this and she signed off on it. Does she have any comments here? Or she didn't sign off on it. She didn't sign off on this one. I don't see any comments here, but remember, I got a lot of comments. I'm going to go back over here. It's back to the things that they've turned in. Oh, okay. Here's what she's looking for. So normally, let's say I have done this and I've got some areas I want them to revisit. Below this message right here, you will see a little box that says Shariana Bowman, and you'll see her next submission. So you're like, oh, okay, great. I'm oriented to what the other person was looking at. I'm going to click on Shariana's document and see if those things have been added. Review it quickly, see if I agree, sign off on the verification form, hand it back, and I'm done. I'm going to close this. One of the issues we've been having with HAIKU is this box over here where we insert the grade. There are a couple different places where you can insert it, but I've been having trouble with it being finally recorded. So I always come back to this screen. I go, okay, Shariana, I just did your stuff. I'm going to put an X here. I click off of it and I check it. Because sometimes I've gone so fast that I've come back and there's nothing in this box, and I know I put it in. So that's sort of where that goes. I would then go on to Buenda, Burkholder, next page, and just keep running through them. Sometimes I go to the end of the alphabet because I feel like I keep going in one direction and getting responses to the front part of the alphabet, and it's not fair to the people in the W's and the Z's. I hope that makes some sense. It's certainly not everything, but it's how do you get in, how do you look at an assignment, what are the basic things you do with that assignment, and then get out. And I'm happy to help you with how you look at grades, how you look at individual pieces. Back to assignment list sometimes takes a while. But let's say I wanted to go on and look at inquiry plans, then I go back to the assignment list. That's the assignment list for year 1. I pick my next assignment and I jump in and start reviewing. I hope that makes some sense. I'm sorry this is so dang long, but now we can talk about how do you want to handle some things, how do you want to do it with 2 reviewers, etc., etc. So thanks for your patience, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.